Welcome to a series called He Trains My Hands for War, where we're going through the book of Joshua, verse by verse, to see what it's like to be in the army of the living God. Joshua and the million-plus Israelites that were in the nation of Israel at the time, as a nation, we've never seen anything like that, where a nation of people follow God's direction into warfare to be victorious time and time again. And we will see it again in the warring of the saints during a time of tribulation. So it's important we understand what that looks like. As we've gone through that, what we've seen is the Israelites have crossed the Jordan River. And as soon as the high priest's last foot stepped out of that Jordan, then the water just rushed downstream and gushed over the banks like it did before they stepped their feet in. At that moment, also God magnified Joshua as the leader of, well, he's already the leader, but they magnified him so much that the nation of Israel feared him from then to the rest of his life. So we're just going to pick it up there. Joshua 4, starting verse 15. Then the Lord spoke to Joshua, saying, command the priests who bear the ark of testimony to come up from the Jordan. Joshua therefore commanded the priests, saying, come up from the Jordan. And it came to pass, when the priests who bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord had come from the midst of the Jordan, and the soles of the priest's feet touched dry land, that the waters of the Jordan returned to their place and flowed over all its banks as before. Now the people came up from the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and they camped in Gilgal, on the east border of Jericho. And those 12 stones which they took up at the Jordan, Joshua set up in Gilgal. Then he spoke to the children of Israel, saying, when your children ask their fathers in times to come, saying, what are those stones? Then you shall let your children know, saying, Israel crossed over this Jordan on dry land. For the Lord your God dried up the water of the Jordan before you until you had crossed over. As the Lord your God did to the Red Sea, which he dried up before us until we crossed over. That all the people of the earth may know the hand of the Lord, that it is mighty, that you may fear the Lord your God forever. And we talked about those stones several episodes ago. Keep going. So it was when all the kings of the Amorites who were on the west side of the Jordan, and all the kings of the Canaanites who were by the sea, heard that the Lord had dried up the waters of the Jordan from before the children of Israel until we had crossed over, that their heart melted, and there was no spirit in them any longer because of the children of Israel. All right, I want to pause there, because psychological warfare is huge. It is huge. We're literally staring at psychological warfare over in Eastern Europe, and we're seeing it on a day-to-day basis. You know, and you can know people who are amped up fighting for a cause fight better than those who are fearful and think, oh my gosh, there is no hope. And what God does to people is he puts that fear that there's no hope. They're up against the living God. There is no hope. Like, you can't win. It doesn't matter what weapons you have. It doesn't matter how many men you have. It doesn't matter that you're the Antichrist with the strongest world army this world has ever seen. It doesn't matter. It will put fear and hopelessness into their hearts and mind, and their hearts will just melt. Who can go against the living God? Nobody can. That's who. And they know it to be true. When the spies went into Jericho, they were all afraid. You know, this thing, you know, we talked about what that must have looked like in the last episode. You know, what that must have looked like for the Jordan River to all of a sudden just stop, you know, like heaps up, 90 miles upstream, and all of a sudden it just dries up the second the priests step their feet in, and then they stand there with the ark, and million-plus people with all their encampments and food and livestock and everything just crossing over. And then as soon as the priests then step out, just boom, back to it. The river gushes over again. And what that must have looked like. It would have been horrifying if you were on the other side, because you think, well, these are the children, God's on their side, but let's see what happens. And then God does that. It's like, it's as if they had a fortress with a wall around it, and God just opened up the door for them, like held it like a doorman. That's here, come on in, children of Israel. Just let me stop this water. Go on in. Let me close the door behind you. It would have been horrifying. It just would have been horrifying. And this is something that we also have to see, is that we have to not only believe in the miracles of God, not only do we have to believe in them and see them when they happen and know them to be true, but in addition to that, we also have to know that when those miracles take place, that God is working on the hearts of our enemies, that he's working on their spirit, that he's working on their courage. He's tearing it down. He's going to tear down their hearts, tear down their spirit, tear down their courage. So by the time they come up against you, they're already psychologically beaten. And then all you have to do is stand back and watch God do his thing. That's it. Follow his instructions, but watch him do his thing. You guys, it's so incredibly important that we know that this is taking place, that during, because we've spent many episodes leading up to this episode talking about, this idea of, being a part of the army of the living God and the warring of the saints during the time of tribulation. And now what we're seeing is warfare is beginning to take place, and it begins with psychological warfare. That's how it all begins. So as we walk into that thing during a time of tribulation, which I believe we will in our lifetime, many of us will become outlaws and will become the remnant, and will join forces with 144,000 Israelites in the warring of the saints, prophetically speaking. So if you believe in prophecy, and if you're watching this episode, I'd probably quit watching if you don't believe in prophecy, because that's the one thing the Israelites had, to be this courageous. When God in the very beginning was like, be strong and of good courage, know prophecy to be true. Be strong of good courage, just know that I'm going to make this prophecy come to reality. Be strong and of good courage, just know I'm with you everywhere you go. So you have to know as you walk into these things that what prophecy says about the end times is reality. And if you don't believe that, well, you probably waste your time watching the series. Because that's how this all began for the Israelites, and that's how it begins for us, is you have to believe prophecy to be true. But that's how you walk into those scary, crazy looking things, is you have to be like, well, God said this was going to happen, so I know I can walk into it confidently. And, and that's why I recommend you go, we've been going through Revelation verse by verse for 4 years now. Go back and watch that End Time series if you haven't. But it's important that we know that when we walk into these scary things, when God says cross this river or go over there, that when you walk into that thing, that he is going to make miracles happen to get you through whatever he told you to go through, and that he is going to tear down the heart, spirit, and mind and soul of your enemies. Any thoughts or insight on any of that, definitely put that below. If you like this video, click like and subscribe. Feel called to support this channel with Patreon, that link is also below. But the most important part of this channel is we take prayer requests, so please don't ever hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.